You ever boot up a game telling yourself, alright, just gonna do the next main mission, and then 4 hours later you're chasing a random fox through a forest, building a potato farm, or getting into a fist fight with a stranger for absolutely no reason?
Are you crazy? You're fucking paranoid, you are
Yeah, that's this video. Some open world games are just built differently. The main story is right there. You know what you're supposed to do, but the world pulls you sideways every single time. And honestly, you let it. I got my credit card maxed out finding and playing those games. Here are the top 10 of those games where you actually forget the main story even exists. Number 10. Crimson Desert. Let's start with one of the most ambitious open worlds built in recent memory, and one that almost nobody talks about enough. Crimson Desert puts you in the boots of Cliff, a mercenary navigating a brutal world full of political chaos, warring factions, and landscapes that genuinely look like they were painted by hand. Pearl Abyss, the studio behind Black Desert Online, took everything they learned from years of building living online worlds and poured it into a single-player experience. And what they built is the kind of world that makes you stop mid-mission just to look at it. Here's what makes Crimson Desert dangerous for your main story progress. The combat system is built around weapon switching and chaining combos, which sounds like a story tool, but it's actually just fun enough on its own that you start picking fights you don't need to pick. You wander into a region, spot a camp, and think, just one quick fight. 2 hours later, you've cleared 4 camps, found a hidden cave, and completely forgotten why you were traveling in that direction. The world reacts to weather. It reacts to time of day. Physics play a role in how enemies fall, how water flows, how the environment behaves around you. This isn't a world that's big for the sake of being big. It's a world that's alive in a way that makes the story feel almost intrusive. The community response has been consistent on this. People keep saying the same thing. You get so caught up in just existing in Crimson Desert that the narrative becomes background noise. And for a game this visually and mechanically rich, that's honestly the highest compliment you can give it. Number 9. Fallout 4. Fallout 4 has one of the most personal main story hooks in the entire series. Your spouse is murdered, your son is kidnapped. You wake up 200 years later, and the only thing that should matter is finding Sean. And yet, there's a reason why people have memes about never finding Sean. Steam achievement data tells the story better than I can. Only about 30% of players who started Fallout 4 actually completed the main quest. That means 7 out of 10 people who bought this game just never found their kidnapped son. They were too busy building settlements, collecting power armor pieces, or wandering through the Commonwealth looking for junk. And honestly, you can't blame them. The settlement building system is basically a separate game inside the game. You can spend 20 hours just constructing the perfect base and never touch a main quest marker. The world is full of vaults to explore, factions to deal with, random encounters that spiral into their own little stories. The main story isn't bad, but Fallout 4's world is genuinely more interesting than the plot it's trying to tell. That's not an insult, that's actually kind of impressive. Number 8. No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky is a weird one on this list, because technically, the main story is just, get to the center of the galaxy. That's it. That's the whole mission. And nobody does it. There are over 18 quintillion planets in this game. 18 quintillion. People have been playing since 2016, and the community has explored a fraction of what exists. On Steam, the average playtime for No Man's Sky sits at over 50 hours, and the vast majority of those hours have nothing to do with reaching any kind of destination. People build underwater bases. They breed exotic creatures. They name planets after their kids. There are entire Discord servers dedicated to planetary cartography. People just mapping alien worlds they found and sharing them with strangers. Someone on r/No Man's Sky. The game posted a screenshot of their base, a massive, fully functioning space station they built entirely in survival mode. The comment said, "Main story, I have a home now." It had 40,000 upvotes. The journey to the center of the galaxy is technically the point, but in No Man's Sky, the universe itself is the point, and the universe is infinite. So, number 7, Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima does something no other game on this list does quite as well. It makes wandering feel intentional. There are no quest markers forcing you anywhere. Instead, the wind guides you. Literally, you set a destination, and the wind blows in that direction, and you ride. And somewhere between where you started and where you were going, you find a fox shrine, or a haiku spot overlooking a cliff, or a Mongol camp just sitting there asking to be cleared out. The main story is genuinely excellent. Jin Sakai's arc is one of the better video game stories of the last decade, but players consistently report that they finished the game with massive chunks of the map untouched because they kept getting pulled sideways by everything else. Steam data shows an average playtime of around 60 hours. The main story takes maybe 25. That's 35 hours of people just existing on Tsushima Island. And what I found interesting digging through Reddit is that most people didn't feel like they were being distracted. They felt like they were living in the game. That's the difference between a good open world and a great one. Ghost of Tsushima makes detours feel like the point. Number 6. Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk 2077 had one of the most chaotic launches in gaming history, but that's not what this video is about. Because what Cyberpunk 2077 eventually became, especially after Phantom Liberty, is one of the richest urban playgrounds ever built. Night City is the real star of this game, not V, not Johnny Silverhand, the city itself. There are 17 distinct districts in Night City, each with its own visual identity, culture, and energy. And the side quests, the actual side quests, not just the random gigs, are some of the best written content in any RPG ever made. The Peralez questline, the Riverward storyline, Carrie's arc. These aren't filler, they're full stories that rival the main campaign. Every alley has something in it. Every rooftop has a reason to be there. The main story is about V trying to survive, but the real game is about you trying to understand a city that never stops moving. Number 5. Elden Ring. Elden Ring's main story is technically about becoming Elden Lord. You need to collect great runes, defeat shard bearers, restore the Elden Ring, all of that. But almost nobody approaches Elden Ring that way. From Software built something genuinely different with the lands between. It's not a world that guides you, it's a world that dares you. Every direction you look, there's something terrifying and interesting waiting, and the game gives you a horse and says, go figure it out. Steam achievement data reveals that completing the first major boss, Margit the Fell Omen, was only achieved by around 50% of players. Godric, the second main story boss, drops to about 43%. By the time you reach Morgott at the capital, you're looking at around 25% of players. The final boss, under 15%. But those players who never finished the game, they weren't doing nothing. They were exploring, getting invaded, finding hidden dungeons, discovering quest lines buried so deep that some weren't fully mapped by the community for months after launch. One Reddit post said, "I have 200 hours in this game, and I just found an entire underground civilization I had no idea existed." That post had 80,000 upvotes. 80,000. Elden Ring is the rare game where getting lost isn't failure. It's the entire design philosophy. Number 4. Red Dead Redemption 2. Red Dead Redemption 2 has one of the most emotionally devastating main stories in the history of video games. Arthur Morgan's arc is genuinely one of the best written characters Rockstar has ever created. And people still don't finish it. Not because the story is bad, because the world of 1899 America is so alive that you can spend 3 hours just riding your horse through the woods watching wildlife interact, and it feels more meaningful than most games' entire campaigns. The game tracks 178 different types of plants. There are 200 species of animals with unique behaviors and ecosystems. Random encounters can chain into multi-stage story moments that take an hour to play out and are never mentioned again. There are strangers with full storylines that span multiple chapters and take you across the entire map. According to Rockstar's own stats, players spent over 1 billion hours in the game's world. The main story takes roughly 50 hours. You do the math on how many of those billion hours were people just existing in the world. Red Dead 2 doesn't just create a world, it creates a life you can choose to live inside it. Number 3. Skyrim. If any game on this list deserves the #1 spot by pure cultural impact, it's Skyrim. But I gave it 3 because, honestly, we all know. We've all been there. Skyrim has been making people forget their main quests since 2011. You are the Dragonborn. Alduin the World Eater is going to destroy everything. Every NPC is telling you that time is running out. And you're over here joining the Thieves Guild, becoming a werewolf, adopting children, and spending 6 hours decorating your house in Whiterun. The Skyrim main quest takes around 20 hours. The average Steam playtime is 87 hours, and that's the average. There are players in the thousands of hours who have never once confronted Alduin. Bethesda actually acknowledged this. Todd Howard once said in an interview that a huge portion of their player base never finishes their main quests. They design for it on purpose. The world has to be more interesting than the story, because that's what keeps people coming back. And then there's the modding community. Over 70,000 mods on Nexus Mods alone. People have been rebuilding, expanding, and completely transforming Skyrim for 14 years. At some point, the game stopped being Bethesda's and became the community's. Skyrim doesn't just make you forget the main story, it makes you build an entirely different one. Number 2, The Witcher: Wild Hunt. The Witcher 3 is the only game on this list where the side quests are arguably better than the main quest. And that's not shade toward the main quest, which is phenomenal. It's just that the side content in this game is operating on a completely different level than anything else in the genre. The Bloody Baron questline, the Ladies of the Wood, Brothers in Arms, Possession. These aren't side quests. They're complete stories with morally complex characters, multiple outcomes, and consequences that ripple across the rest of the game. Some of them are longer and more emotionally involving than most games' entire campaigns. CD Projekt Red reportedly had around 150 hours of additional content cut from the final game. What's left is still overwhelming. The average completionist playtime is around 173 hours. And on GOG, CD Projekt's own platform where they have the most detailed data, the average player spends over 100 hours before seeing the credits, if they ever see them. A famous Reddit thread asked, "Did anyone else forget Ciri existed while playing Witcher 3? It had tens of thousands of responses from people who genuinely lost track of the main story, because a side quest pulled them somewhere else for weeks. That's the magic. The Witcher 3 doesn't have a main story and side content. It has an entire world of content where everything feels equally important. And that's why it's still being talked about, and still being played, a decade later. Number 1, Grand Theft Auto 5. You knew it was coming. Grand Theft Auto 5 came out in 2013. It is 2026. It is one of the best-selling entertainment products in human history, at over 200 million copies sold. And a significant portion of people who own it have never watched the ending. The main story of GTA 5 is genuinely great. 3 protagonists with completely different personalities. Heists that hold up as some of the most cinematic set pieces in gaming. A satirical takedown of American culture that still lands today. And yet, Los Santos is the most detailed fictional city ever constructed. Every neighborhood has its own identity. The radio stations alone, 17 of them, with fully produced original content, could keep you entertained for days. You can play the stock market, go hunting, race cars, rob armored trucks, do yoga, play golf, base jump off mountains, or just drive around listening to music. According to Rockstar, players collectively spent over 8 billion hours in GTA 5 across all platforms. The main story is around 30 hours. I'll leave you to figure out where the other 7,970,000,000 hours went. A thread on GTAV from a few years ago asked, "How many times have you played GTA and never finished the story?" The top comment just said, "Every single time." It had 45,000 upvotes. GTA 5 isn't a game with a world built around a story. It's a world that happens to have a story built inside it. And that distinction is exactly why it's still here. Still played and still impossible to put down, 13 years later. So there you go, 10 open world games where the main story quietly becomes the least interesting thing in the room. And here's what I find fascinating about all of these games. The developers who made them didn't fail. They succeeded at something much harder than writing a good story. They built worlds that feel real enough that you want to live in them. That's rare. That's genuinely hard to do. And when it works, it creates something people come back to for years. If this kind of video is your thing, real data, real community opinions, no fluff, subscribe, because this is just the beginning. See you in the next one.